I'm going to show you two different articles that come from the same Protestant denomination. It's an organization called Desiring God. Two articles. One is pretty positive on the idea of happy wife, happy life. The other is a bit more negative. So I'm going to start with the negative one. We'll end on a positive note. And so the first one is from June of 2018, like you can see right here, Desiring God. And happy wife, happy life, and other misleading advice to young husbands. So they have content creators. This is Greg Morse. He's a content strategist at Desiring God. And he starts his article off by referencing another article that he read. The title of it was, How Do I Get My Husband to Be Less Passive? And he was reading it. It was an author, a wife, and a clinical psychologist. And she just talked about how some of her clients, had a lot of complaints. Her female clients who were women, who were married women, they just couldn't get their husbands to engage. And she said that there's a lot of distractions in modern life with TV, laptops, smartphones. We all know this. But basically the complaint, or what they wanted, was, you can see here in green, they wanted their men to plan dates, start conversations, play with the kids, stand up for themselves at work and for their wife with the in-laws, or to show concern for daily decisions. The manly intentionality that had pursued these women during dating had dwindled in marriage. Now, I love this point. I think this is a really, really interesting point. And I'm just going to we could spend a lot of time here because I think it's very controversial. But I think these complaints are real for women. I think that it is easy to get checked out. But I also think it's really interesting how guys change. There's a famous blogger, his name is Dalrock, he's a Christian guy. If you haven't checked his stuff out, you can check him out. He's on WordPress. But he talks about this, and a lot of other people call it kind of the betaization of men. He was engaged. He was, in charge. He was, making decisions. He was, taking care of his business. And for some reason, then he got married, and he stopped doing that. Well, why? And they go on, they say, well, this is an age-old problem. And they jump all the way back to Genesis 3. They talk about Adam and Eve in the garden, and they reference this first misstep by men. The wife was tempted. She decides to sin, but what does he do? Well, these guys say he made two mistakes. One, he didn't speak up and say the things that he knew were true. I mean, she knew them and he knew them, but they were saying it was his job to not be passive in that moment when there was a decision to be made, a direction to go, that when there was conflict. I mean, there was internal conflict, I'm assuming, and you can see that in the conversation. We don't have to go back and read it. We all probably know it. But they say that was really something that we see again and again and again, is that men check out, men are too passive, men are not engaged, men don't want to engage in conflict, men just want to take the easy road. And so he says we're given, as guys, as new husbands, 4 naive and easily misunderstood words of counsel that are given to new husbands from even well-meaning Christian brothers. And I didn't get a lot of guys coming in and saying this to me, but I know that there was a lot of people saying this to the women especially. The mark of the quality of your husband, the mark of the longevity of your marriage is centered around how happy are you emotionally and how consistently. And so, happy wife, happy life. Here we go. And it says, like I said, this author doesn't love it, but it says the advice could be redeemable. The husband should lavish his queen with love, finding a great deal of his joy in hers, and one could say it from an eternal perspective. Happy wife in the Lord, and you're going to have a happy life. She's going to have a happy life. If she learns how to center her joy and her strength and found that right on the rock, on Christ, on God, and learn to take from Him, learn to abide in Him, she's going to be happy. That's going to be the key to her success. But he says that's not what we really mean when we throw this term around. And we throw it around in Christian culture, no doubt. And we act like we all know what it means, and then we're all in agreement about it, and it's basically like a Bible verse. Well, he says, but what can often be meant by this phrase, we can't miss it. It basically could be interpreted, a man's life is less miserable when his woman gets her way. maybe a lot of guys, they say it's just easier. I remember one guy, he was head of HR at this hospital I worked at, and he was like, "Look, I mean, I'm not going to fight with her. I'm going to lay in the same bed with her in a couple hours. I'm going to make her mad." He was really funny, but I mean, I don't know how good his marriage was. But they just go on, they say, look, such deferment is tempting. No conflict, no unhappy bride, no blame. Let's just give her whatever she wants. She'll be way more comfortable. And, we don't have to get into all this. As a quick aside, I've definitely talked to a lot of people, and what seems to happen if you play that game for long term is you wind up in a sexless marriage. That she sees that he's just a pushover. He's not willing to stand up to her. He doesn't have like a mind of his own. If he had one at one point, he kind of threw that out the window and he just said, whatever you want, honey, because he doesn't want to fight. Sooner or later, she kind of like loses interest in some level of respect in him, and then some of the sexual desire kind of dies off. And then all of a sudden, I mean, she's kind of repulsed by this guy that's just like this, like limp noodle. I mean, you can't. The guy's got no backbone, he's just lost it completely. So that definitely happens. Is that the number one reason behind sexless marriages? No, I don't know. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I want to check it out in the future, but that's not what this is about. But at the same time, very quickly they get into this other area that's very, very problematic. Check this out in blue. Making unpopular decisions on weighty matters that you think and pray are spiritually best for her and your family. But we have to realize in the context of our day that the counseling community, some would say in the counseling community, that this is the description of an abusive marriage. Abusive, you may say. How could you say that? Well, they're going to say it's abusive in the sense that if you look and break this down here, making unpopular decisions on weighty matters. So these aren't like little things like, what time do you want to eat? These are weighty matters. These are big money decisions. Where are the kids going to go to school? Are we going to go on vacation? What's the financial decisions for maybe the long-term financial health? Are we going to be able to get into a new house or not? Whatever the weighty matters are, right? These are the big ones. And they're unpopular. That means that not everybody is in agreement. He has one idea, she has another. That's why it's unpopular, because they're having a disagreement. And then go on to say that you're going to make unpopular decisions. The husband's going to make unpopular decisions on big things that he thinks, after having prayed, even though he prayed about it, are spiritually best for her. So he's taking the, audacity, if you want to say, or the responsibility that he is now like her protector on spiritual things, that he's trying to, safeguard her and protect her from spiritual things, and that he knows he has some kind of, because he's a man, or I don't know, how this is explained, and usually it's not, if the man is the husband, does he have some special like anointing or some kind of like special wisdom or access to God or some kind of thing that God gives all husbands? We don't talk about that. These types of groups, they just say, well, the man is the leader because we have the Bible verse. And I think it's true. But I also think that there's huge, like, just deafening silence as far as some of the ins and outs. We don't really talk about, if he's a little bit out of his league, if he doesn't understand certain things about maybe real estate or children's needs, what the kids need, where the kids will do best in school, or whatever, it puts a lot of pressure on him. And like I said, the counseling community would say, if he's making decisions that she doesn't agree with, and she's forced into that kind of marriage, and that marriage that whole system is propped up by the religious institution, that she's essentially become diminished, is the word that they use, that she lost part of herself. She lost part of her personhood, her decision-making, her autonomy, and she doesn't stand equally with him anymore under this system. So, I'm like still on the first page, right? And I'm seeing like all this loaded stuff in here that is all part of it, and we've reduced it down to 4 words: happy wife, happy life, and that's how it's supposed to work. But they go back to what they believe, what they think is, and it's just important in your marriage and with every couple. If you're not married, if you're going to be dating someone and you're thinking about marrying them, do they think this is true, a true statement? But Christ created men to initiate and bear responsibility. A, is that true or false? B, what in the world does that mean? C, is the same true for women, and in what way? To how does she bear responsibility? How is she to initiate? Or is it only his job? We don't talk about these things, We just say, well, men are the head and whatever, and then, oh yeah, and don't forget, throw some happy wife, happy life on there too, and good luck to you guys, right? It's just, anyway, so his charge includes the flourishing of his wife. Again, I've marked this because this is a huge red flag to me. There are certain people in the counseling community, and I used to work in this community for a while, they say that it's really important to develop self-mastery. And what they mean by that is that they believe that mature individuals are able to go through life and regulate their emotions. They're able to regulate their emotional status, independent of outside events. So, car might splash water on you, boss might be a jerk to you, someone might cut you off in traffic. And the mature and kind of whole person is able to self-regulate. This tends to cause us to believe that it's somehow the husband's job to spiritually guard her or protect her. It's his job to cause her to flourish. It's his job to cause her to be happy. So it's his job to essentially somehow manage her emotions. Now, you can't manage people's emotions. You can treat them in certain ways, in ways that you think, will make them happy, like giving them what they want, maybe in the short term. But it's very loaded. It's very loaded, this whole thing, this whole article. And it reads easy, you just think, well, this is all just normal Christian 101 stuff. And, if you really start to look at it, I like how he says it's our job to obey our master. And I think this is the heart of what's really going to empower you to stand for your marriage if you're in a divorce situation and you're seeking restoration when your partner doesn't want it. It's, because if you get into those videos that I've done on marriage restoration and that whole controversy, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. And the only people that are ever going to do it are going to do it probably because they believe it's what God wants them to do. Happy wife, easier life does not lead to happiness, but to a closet full of regret, bitterness, and selfishness, which we all must open eventually. It backfires on us. So they say, look right here, they say it's nearsighted. They just think that it doesn't work. It's a short-term fix, it's conflict avoidance, it doesn't lead to mature, intimate relationship between two honest people. It's, I don't want to fight with her, just let her have whatever she wants. And they say it doesn't work long term. Be a servant leader. And this is something guys hear all the time in church. And women aren't really told this in the same way. Every guy knows, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. And the idea is very clear, we're to sacrifice for her. And what kind of sacrifice? Well, if it's like Christ, he gave everything. I think that gets a little diluted and a little changed up. He didn't do whatever the disciples needed on a day in, day out basis, right? He just didn't cater to all the needs. Remember when he was asleep and they thought they were going to drown? Remember when his best friend or one of his good friends, Lazarus, was about to die and he could have healed him, but he didn't, and all those people were pissed that he was, off doing something else? Remember all the people that they wanted food or they wanted him to come and cast out demons, and he went off into the wilderness? There was a lot of times when he said that he had food that was different, that the disciples didn't know about. And his food was to do the will of his Father. So he had a game plan that was separate than catering to everyone else's desires all the time. So the paradox of the servant leader. Are you the servant or are you the leader? How does that work? He says it devolves in some minds into merely meaning servant. So I think that's true a lot. We have a lot of pressure on guys to be a servant, to be weak, to be submissive, to be giving. And we totally, it's this whole rhetoric of, male oppression through the centuries and all this stuff, and guys are bad, toxic masculinity, right? And it's this huge thing going on right now. where it's like, boys are bad. Let's try to make them more feminine. Let's try to get guys more in touch with their feminine side. Like, let's try to tame down this masculine leadership, competitive, all that stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. So it kind of the leadership gets chopped off and thrown away, and now it's just, well, he needs to be a servant. And you take on her calling not because of exceptional circumstances, but only because you wanted to lay your aspirations down for hers. You coddle her, never asking her to do anything that she does not already want to do, even if you think it's best for her ultimate joy in the Lord. So they go on, they say marriage is 50-50, but then he goes on and says, no, it's really not. It says manhood doesn't require her to scratch your back before you'll scratch hers. They basically said that, guys always have to go first. You have to apologize first. You have to, admit you're wrong first. You have to initiate the relationship. You have to risk getting shot down for sex. Anyway, they go on to this part. They do a little bit of social commentary. And they basically say that our feminist-influenced, Bible-ignoring, headship-shaming society wishes real men to be milder. They wish you passive, and they wish you silent. I don't know, what do you guys think that that's true? In what ways do you feel like society in general, if you're a guy, is trying to get you to be weaker, quiet, not having a voice, not having an opinion, not speaking your opinion, not stepping up into leadership, not taking initiative? Are those things happening a lot or a little? And women, what do you think? Are you guys getting this message that that's the right thing for men, that that's the right thing for the family, that that's what a woman should look for, and what a woman should want? Is a kind of a, I don't know, I suppose, kind of not too strong of a guy, a weaker guy, somebody, he says, guys, that's not what guys are, and that's not how God is, and, that to sacrifice, yes, but also to fight and, be strong and stand firm in the faith. He says, it cannot be asked of that man, how can I get my husband to be less passive? So a man that's strong, a man that's, standing on God's word and all fired up or whatever. That man, as C.S. Lewis depicts, goes into battle and retreats last. He, for truth's and honor's sake, stands fast and suffers long. God calls you to increasingly be this man and provides the strength for you to be him when you feel weak. Stand up then, be strong, after the true strength and example of Christ, for your king, your wife, and your future kin. So they kind of end on this kind of triumphant, go into conflict, be strong, have a voice, have an opinion, embrace the leadership that God has given you. Let's jump over here to this other article. And like I said, it starts from a very similar place. It's from September 2016. Same organization, Desiring God. The Heart of Christian Husbanding is the article's name. And this is written by David Matthias. And he is the executive editor, desiringgod.org. And he basically does an interview with this gentleman whose name is not easy for me, but he's from Sri Lanka, and a little island off the southern tip of India. And his first name, Ajit Fernando. He interviews Ajit. But I love how this article starts, and if you can finish this phrase, you'll see, if mama ain't happy. Essentially, the idea is, if mama ain't happy, everyone's going to be miserable. Everything's going to go bad. She's going to let you know that she didn't get what she wanted, and it's just going to be not a great experience. It's like, you better give her what she wants, otherwise we're all going to have to pay the consequences. So just keep her happy. Keep her happy. He starts off right at the same place. That the wife doesn't want her husband's shell. She wants his attention, his energy, his creativity and awareness and engagement, especially when it's most difficult. Essentially, you can see here, this is this guy's essential message, and you'll notice right away, it's 4 words. The first 2 are the same, happy wife, but comma, holy ambition. So you'll see they modified the phrase, right? It's no longer happy wife, happy life. It's different. And so that change, I think, is pretty significant. It would say in at least part, or in a sense, they don't wholly subscribe to happy wife, happy life. Even though this is the more positive article on the issue. They're going to say, no, it needs to be adjusted. It's not accurate. We're going to adjust it, and he's going to tell us why. So the interviewer, he says, no matter what angle I pressed him from, Fernando's core message for young husbands like me is to make it your ambition to make your wife happy. Prick him on husbanding, and he says to make her happy. This isn't really helping us much, so it's simple enough on the surface, but his counsel has textures, layers, and nuances ready to back it up in the real world. If you're going to hold this view, and if you're an older man who God says it's older men's job to teach younger men, how to live upright, and how to love their wives, that is something that is, you guys gotta help us out with these textures, layers, and nuances, because it's too simplistic. It's too simplistic. I don't care which four-letter phrase you're going to use. Either one, it doesn't do us a lot of good. So, ambition is the key word for Ajith. The heart of husbanding, he says, is an ambition, not a burden. To gladly empty oneself of selfish comforts in order to fill one's wife with joy. To find your own joy less in small private pleasures and more in shared happiness with your wife. It's his way of pressing home the truth of Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now I'm going to go back to a point that I just made a little bit ago. See, this is weird for me because it's the same advice. It's, guys, you should take your ambitions, your private things that you like to do, the things that you're engaged in as an individual, put those on the cross, lay them at the foot of the cross, sacrifice those, get rid of those, empty yourself, be like Christ, sacrifice for your bride, and do what she wants. Or figure out what she needs, which is maybe a little bit different thing than her little, selfish satisfactions, but maybe she does need these more: help with the kids, help with the house, know that you respect her, know that you're engaged, know that you're not leaving, know that you're not sleeping around, know that she comes before work, and things like this. So if that's what he's saying, he doesn't really lay it out, but okay, that's one thing. But, this is exactly the criticism that the other article had. Hey, my friends, while I was editing, I got lost in Maze Runner. No, I'm just kidding. Look, I noticed that I could have said something a lot better than I did, and I had some fresh thoughts that I thought were important to add. So, look, at this point in the second article, I had to stop and I had to really ask myself, hold on, isn't this the exact same criticism the first article had, which was guys get married, they're attractive, they're kind of focused on themselves, they're doing well, and then they get married, and then they are pushed into this passive mind frame. They're just doing whatever she wants, whatever makes her happy, and that, I don't know, but at the end of the day, you have a bunch of women complaining that, my husband isn't engaged, she doesn't, take charge, she doesn't step up with the in-laws, at work, with kids, he just doesn't do date nights. He's just like this passive dude. That was the word they used, yes? So, look, now we're in the second article, and we have a little bit different language. We have this guy using this word, holy ambition, whatever that means. He kind of coined this term. But what is he essentially saying? Is he not saying at this point something very similar that pushes guys back in a more passive role? When he says that guys should sacrifice or get rid of some of their ambitions, that they should make it the priority to make the wife happy. How far is that from saying the guy should get rid of his ambitions? Or what's the difference between ambitions and goals, let's say? So the guy should get rid of his personal goals. Is that the advice that he's giving? That he should maybe prioritize the marriage at the highest level? God, then the marriage. If you have a guy like that, and I'm just thinking out loud, but if you have a guy like that he kind of gets rid of all his ambitions and all of his goals, and his main goal is pulling off a great date night on Friday, or
being really good at playing with kids, or I guess like engaging in conflict with the in-laws. If that's like his max kind of like things that he's chasing, I don't know. I mean, I don't really see that that is going to be a thing where he is going to be fully engaged in life. And that's what I think you need. You want a guy that's fully engaged in life if he's going to be fully engaged also when he comes home. I guess what I'm saying is that I think that there are certain like ambitions outside of the marriage relationship that are ultra important for the guy. And I'm not going to take credit for this because I'm not the one that really says this. But what I will say is if you look outside of the Christian sphere and you start looking at what a lot of other people that are working on this issue or thinking about it, who are talking about the divorce rates or trying to coach younger guys, they're basically saying, look, the thing that the guy should do is, above all else, make himself the highest priority in his life. Maybe, I mean, there's secular guys, so I'm not going to say, higher than God, but what they're saying is the guy should, he should be exceeding and excelling in his career. He should be on an upward trajectory in terms of money and success. He should be going to the gym, which doesn't have anything to do with date nights or kids, right? He should be going to the gym and being sexually attractive, physically fit, in shape. He should have friends, these are all activities outside the home is what they're basically saying. And what they say is if the guy ever decides to get rid of those things and put a relationship or a woman at kind of the pinnacle of his life, that's going to be the end of the end. That really that is going to suck not suck the energy out of his relationship. It's going to suck the energy out of his life. They really say that, and look, if you go back and you look at other resources, Christian resources, people have coined this idea of putting the wife in the marriage at the very pinnacle, the top, the peak of the man's mind and ambition. They call it wife worship, Now, I don't know if that's a term that you like. It's not going to be a term that you're probably going to read about in Desiring God, but I thought it was like a fair thing to kind of bring into the discussion at this point. So we'll head on back to the article and see how they kind of finish off.
But at the heart of what it means to be a husband is to give yourself, not mainly your money, but yourself, for the eternal and holy temporal joy of your wife. Keep her happy. Again, they're back at this idea where it's like it's his job to control or manage her emotions. What are we going to say about that? Is that right? The bigger question is, how are you as a couple going to sort through that and talk about that and address it and talk about expectations? I mean, it doesn't matter what these articles say or what I say. I mean, it's your relationship. But I just try to lay it out because I think there are these super loaded messages that we get in Christianity. We're told like in a sermon or something, and we're supposed to like get it and see it and like it's all going to work. And even among these people that work at the same place and write on the same issue, they see it differently. And one person's advice is another person's criticism. So, I don't know. The other guy said, Greg Morse, he says, well, this is manipulative and, it's not good. She needs to be able to find her joy in the Lord, and that's how she'll be happy. This guy is saying, no, it's more like he needs to, if he can sacrifice enough, he's going to eventually like wear her down or something into joy. I don't know, that's such a weird way to say it, but anyway, holiness as a husband means spending yourself for her. Fernando acknowledges, check this out, watch this. Fernando acknowledges that it's one thing to make her happy, but it can be quite another to persevere in self-sacrifice for a persistently unhappy wife. But just because she is unusually hard to please doesn't change the heart of the husband's call. Sorrow doesn't always melt into joy overnight. Don't give up. Pray that God will change her and wait patiently. I think there's got to be some limits on this thing because you cannot fix people and you're going to wear yourself out trying, and it's just way too much responsibility. They have to take responsibility for their own life at some point and their own emotional well-being. They have to become mature as people and not be solely dependent upon anyone in the world. The point of Christianity, there's too many verses about abiding in Christ, about abiding in the vine, about building your house upon the rock. Joy won through struggle, disguise a fighter. And I love this part because, hey, you're going to have to be a fighter. If you're a man or woman of God, fighting for your marriage, praying, waiting for restoration, asking God to help, defeat the enemy, overcome the past, any baggage, just to restore, rebuild, break the chains, cut the bars, Psalm 107, Psalm 103, all these things. Yeah, you're going to have to, stay at it, and God will have to be your strength. And I do like that about this guy. He says struggle doesn't need to be unpleasant, but you need to have the conflict. So I think he's got some strength in that sense. He's pretty confident that he's going to, sacrifice, die to himself, give up his, he says, private pleasures so that she can get what she wants. I guess she's responding well. She likes it. He likes it. He believes that it's the best way to do things. And so, maybe it is. But just, it's a conversation we need to be having and that we need to be fluent in. We need to be able to understand how it works within our relationship. Yep, we need to learn how to fight without hurting each other. Should I read this last part? I'll read this last part and then sign off. The key is costly grace. What unlocks the door for Fernando's very Christian, hedonistic vision of husbanding is the costly grace of God for us in Christ. Husbands can keep giving, keep sacrificing, keep pouring out, even when they feel their resources are spent and they have come to the end of themselves, because they are not the ultimate source of their strength. That comes by the grace of God, which empowers both a husband's best effort to bring his wife holy joy and to press gently into marital conflict instead of running from it. At the heart of Fernando's theology is the grace of God, rescuing rebel sinners, giving himself fully all the way to the end, enduring injustice, not demanding his rights, but laying them down for the good of another. Such grace, then, is also at the heart of what it means to be a husband. A husband's wallet may be empty, and his energy may be depleted, but by the grace of God, he has the opportunity to be a channel for his wife's truest joy. What do you think? What's better? Let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoy the articles. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.